Daily update of the Oscar Pistorius trial, of course, that going on at the North Gauteng High Court. And in a very eventful 13th day at the Oscar Pistorius murder trial, the court heard continued ballistics evidence and the blood splatter analysis, as well as details of the web history of an iPad recovered from the Paralympians' home. Now, with us on the line, we have Shain Germaner from The Star to summarize the day's events for us. Shain, good to have you back on the line.
Oh, good morning, Kate.
Let's pick it up from Captain Christian Mangena's testimony, and of course he's the state's ballistics expert, and he testified, and I'm going to quote here, that he believed that it was most probable that Pistorius had fired the 4 shots through the toilet door while he was on his stumps from a distance no closer than 60 centimeters from the door. How does that play out when one looks at the initial statement or testimony given by Pistorius?
Well, Mangena's testimony, it seemed to both corroborate and disprove Pistorius' testimony. I mean, as you said, it did prove that Pistorius was on his stumps when he shot through that toilet door. And it also seemed to suggest that he wasn't able to determine exactly how far Pistorius was from that door, and therefore that his version that he could have been even against the wall of that bathroom could also be true. But what I thought was interesting was how Mangena's testimony really painted Reeva Steenkamp's final moments. You know, I mean, from what he told us, apparently she was standing in front of the door, and that the first bullet that came through hit her in the hip, which knocked her backwards. Now, if she'd fallen to the floor, the other bullets probably wouldn't have hit her, he said. But because she landed on the magazine rack that was adjacent to the toilet, apparently she was in a sitting position, and that when she raised her arms in some sort of an attempt at defending herself, it was the other 3 bullets that then came through this bathroom door, this hail of gunfire, and the first bullet ricocheted on one of the walls, and the other 2 were the next 2 that struck her in the upper arm and also in her skull, ultimately killing her. Now, Barry Rue was trying to argue that throughout his testimony that apparently Pistorius may have double-tapped with his gun, which means that he fired 2 shots in close succession twice. So that would have been the 4 bullets. But Mangena said with his analysis, it was very unlikely that happened because it wouldn't have given Steenkamp the time to fall to the ground.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, and it was kind of, apparent when we saw the pictures yesterday, just how vivid that image really became to the viewers of the case. And next up, the testimony of Colonel Ian van der Nest, who's the state witness's blood splatter analyst. He came up. And, of course, right now it's about linking the initial statement to what the experts are saying. Give us some of the details of his statement pertaining to the event.
Well, I think Colonel van der Nest was also brought to the stand to help corroborate Mangena's testimony. And he seemed to believe that Mangena's theory that Steenkamp had fallen backwards, and that after she had been killed, that her head landed on the toilet seat, and that it was her arm that was bleeding that created the large amount of blood spatter on the floor. And essentially, when he was brought through, it seems though that also he was there to provide testimony that also Pistorius' version that he carried Steenkamp's body downstairs seemed to be the case, and that most of the spatter that was from the upstairs bathroom all the way downstairs to the main entrance was from Steenkamp's blood-drenched hair and her shorts that she was wearing that were carrying a lot of the blood.
And of course, I think one of the biggest things that's caused a lot of talk as well is the recovery of the devices that were recovered from Pistorius' home. And of course, Colonel Mike Sales then came up, and he's one of the policemen who actually flew to the United States to try and gain access to the information on the iPhones from Apple. Take us through the details of his testimony, because I think those proved quite interesting.
Well, I think a lot of the journalists in court yesterday were quite surprised by this testimony. When he was brought through, he gave us an indication that he was the one who was responsible for downloading all of the information, the web history, and the bookmarks from Pistorius' iPads. And while Pistorius' web history was pretty much broadcast to the court, the state never actually went into detail on its content. What we saw was that apparently there hadn't been any, that his history had been deleted prior to about 4:30 on February 13th. And unfortunately, one of the first first searches that Pistorius had done was apparently a mobile porn site, and that throughout the evening he continued to use his iPad, where he searched, I believe it was auto trader websites, a bunch of websites about luxury cars, and then the final one was an image of this Morgan Aeromax car. Now, unfortunately, it wasn't really unpacked in court what exactly this means, but we suspect that this is some sort of supplementary testimony that could, in fact, make more sense with another witness's evidence. But yes, it seems as though it didn't really come across what exactly the point was
of that kind of
in the state's case.
Yeah, Shain, thank you very much. We really appreciate your updates, and we look forward to chatting to you again next week, mate. Have a good long weekend.
You too.
Thanks, Shain. That's Shain Germaner, a journalist from The Star, giving us a daily summary of what happened yesterday at the North Gauteng High Court. Of course, court is adjourned until next week, Monday morning. So that's when we'll have our next update. And of course, if you're looking for more detail or in-depth details on the trial, visit www.sabcnews.com. Now, we want to engage with you on social media. Let us know on Facebook. This is the interesting question of the day. We want to know, with the state's case set up or set to wrap up next week, as Gerrie Nel has proposed, what do you think of the case that the prosecution has made? And if you had to choose, right, who would you rather hire? Prosecutor Gerrie Nel or defense advocate Barry Roo? Very interesting. We'd like to find out from you. Stay tuned to your Feel Good Breakfast show.